watch. She loves to watch. She loves to watch.
As the house stays having because of closing the next side, she looks through the window in the other girl's eyes. She loves to watch. She sometimes make herself known.
She loves to watch.
Yeah. Well, it really turns her on.
She loves to watch.
Hi, I'm Art Fein. Welcome to Little Art's Poker Party. Coming to you from Santa Monica by the sea on a beautiful day in, what is it, May. 1988. We're very happy to have some regular guys and a real extraordinary guest. Some of the regular guys are Ken Barnes. Ken, this is your second...
My chance to explain myself.
This is the second. Ken's the editor of Radio and Records, and he's a longtime friend of Little Arts. I think we're going to start a society like that, so people can send in contributions.
I'll be a charter member.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by. Next to him, we got Sid Griffin. Sid?
Art, how you doing?
What are your credits?
Let's see. Right now I'm between bands, which is opposed to between jobs. I used to be in the famous Longriders, the infamous Longriders, and right now I seem to be busy being Arthur Treacher, your Merv, and appearing on this show. Send the tapes home to my dad. See, I've got a job. I'm in TV, and he thinks I'm actually doing something out here. So.
Well, that's terrific. It's nice of you to come by, and I know that you guys like seeing me, but I know your real reason was to come to see this guy. We've got Mr. Brian Wilson.
I'm I'm here. I'm right here.
Brian, welcome to the show.
Right here. Thank you. What I've been into lately is, of course, organizing an album with Dr. Landy, who's my executive producer, Gene Landy, and it took us a good year. It took us a whole year to get the components together and to get the voices sounding right, you know. So, but we did it, you know.
Well, what we've heard of it, we've heard snatches.
Yeah, all
of it.
three of us
have heard bits of it, and we're thrilled.
We're
at
knocked
that.
out.
I mean, Ken.
I almost had a religious experience. I think. No, I was listening to it in a car, and
Is that right?
the way it was intended to be heard.
What was
it just
that
sounded right.
song?
Rio Grande.
No, the second one on the tape that I heard.
Love and Mercy.
That's for handing it back.
Nighttime.
Guys, remember?
Walking the line.
Let It Shine.
Let It
Shine, yeah.
Boy, that
Because
really-
you had them in a different order we did.
that was a really interesting song. God, it was good. This is the forthcoming cover.
We get a shot of that.
Maybe by the time of this will be in stores, though we're not sure when. You Warner Brothers guys, got any estimates? July or so? Okay. Well, we're looking forward to this quite a bit.
It's about when the show airs.
That's not true. This is your first solo effort as Brian. You guys could fill me in a little more. I know on Pet Sounds you did a lot of vocals and and then one single from that came out under the
Didn't
name
Caroline No come out as
Caroline No,
Brian
right.
Wilson?
Right, and then Getting Hungry was
Brian
you
and
and
Mike.
Mike.
Yeah.
It came out under the name Brian and Mike.
Brian Wilson and Mike Love.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand that the Pet Sounds has been, you remixed it for Capitol release?
Yeah, we did. We kind of got it together for Capitol. The tape is so old that I would have figured it'd be decrepit by now. You know, I mean, it's 22 years ago that we made the record, and it still stands it's still a good album.
Do you want to?
Very good album.
I'm very embarrassed. I was told to bring by some key Brian albums, and those people that are in the audience that the folks at home aren't aware of will note immediately that this is not the actual first issue. Sorry, I'm into
Not green
music.
enough.
Pull it down,
Yeah,
push it,
right.
pull it forward, like that. That's
Sorry,
right.
is that shining? Anyway, this is Pet Sounds, the reissue that came out in '72 with Carl and the Passions. And so I'm very sorry I don't have one of the Japanese tour photographs in the back, but I don't know where it is, perhaps in an old girlfriend's house. So this is the aforementioned album.
So you're going to get that autographed?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was hoping to, but I'm no fool, so I hope to after the show. This is something that's sort of the precursor, I feel. I think Ken was saying about the new album that you've just done, in many ways, thematically in the sounds.
It's almost as if no time had gone by between the two, in a way.
Yeah. Well, are you speaking of Pet Sounds?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
That there's a link there in some way. I don't know if we're reading into it as fans, but I mean, thematically or whatever, and the fact that maybe you had such a great hand in Pet Sounds, that it's your album, there seems to be some
The production
connection.
has such depth to it.
Yeah. Well, it was Phil Spector inspired and Four Freshmen inspired.
Right, yeah.
And Brian Wilson inspired. I had something to say as a musician on my own after hearing from Spector and what he had to say about rock and roll. For a couple of years there, I didn't think I had much to say outside of what he said, you know, but as time went by, it built up into a whole Brian Wilson package kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I put it across. I put my name and my music across, and respectfully from the business, I got a lot of. There was a big buzz going around, about Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Beatles were crazy about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Paul McCartney told me that it was his favorite album, which was a big thrill for me to hear. But Rubber Soul and Sgt. Pepper, I mean, we couldn't come up to, the stuff is really good.
It was a mutual admiration society,
Yeah.
I think, because I think probably hearing Pet Sounds made them try to come up with Revolver and Sgt. Pepper and all that. So, great times.
You mentioned the Four Freshmen. I think it was us that were once talking about that this is a very white band, the Beach Boys. I mean, we usually the Doors have a little blues background or something. We don't hear much of black. I mean, it's just interesting. It's neat. I mean, but we don't hear a lot of rhythm and blues like you do in a lot of rock bands. So with the Four Freshmen, did you pick it up from your folks, or were you listening to it yourself?
Well, my mother just pointed out a record on the radio one day called Day by Day, and I liked the sound of what I heard. I liked what I heard enough to where I wanted to hear more. So I had to go to a record store and sample some records by the Freshmen to get satisfied. It was satisfying, but it left me really wanting more for some reason. It was just a sound. That's all it was.
But a lot of people feel, and I know I'm certainly one of them, that all the people, for instance, Art and I in particular admire, have some linkage to the R&B community, to the black community specifically. And in many ways, there was a phrase I heard that I got from someone, I've forgotten who, so I'm going to take credit for it myself, that you guys were making it hip to be white or all right to be white. To wit, you have the Chuck Berry guitar and certain overtones of the black community, but at the end of the day, you're a suburban, sort of a middle-class sound that's as hip and as groovy and as in there and as in the pocket and as emotional as anything, whereas the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, et al., have great linkage to the black community. And you were the first guys to be specifically Californian American, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, Terrence Trent D'Arby. I don't know if you heard of him. He and I just cut together.
Really?
And, yeah.
Oh,
so it wound up a black and white record, But he was just excellent. I mean, the guy really can sing.
Oh, did you see that show?
Yeah.
With Terrence, yeah.
What
it
show was that?
interesting. Terrence Trent D'Arby.
Oh, the show with the performance.
But his singing would be a first cousin of that type of thing that they do. I mean, he can do the falsetto and have the groove and all that stuff. So it's a perfect foil for a guy like yours talent.
Oh, there's something I got to ask. Did you like Queen at all?
Queen. Oh, yeah, Queen.
Because they got the high harmonies, and I've always...
Queen were not Beach Boy influenced. I mean,
No.
but the guy's classical background was immense. I mean, I don't have the background that he had to create a record like that with such a big sound, and not like the wall of sound from Spectre, but in a class of its own. You know what I mean?
I just wondered if you ever noticed it, because I thought the high harmonies had some similarity.
Yeah, I did. I heard something in it, but I kept referring back to the wall of sound. If you're going to go so far and make a record that's going to be that great, why not go all the way and do a record that sounds even better?
He did, actually, the guy from Queen did a version of I Can Hear Music,
Oh, did
which
he
was
really?
a total Spectre tribute.
Oh,
under the name Larry Lurex.
Oh,
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
assumed name?
Yeah, sort of like a Gary Glitter kind
Oh,
of
I
thing.
see.
You got to we'll make a tape for it.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually very, very good.
Yeah.
Good version of it.
What was the first? I've always asked this. What's the first record you bought, Ken?
Oh, man.
Mr. Tambourine Man by the Byrds.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
The first record you bought?
Can I-
Yeah, I was a little late. Yeah. Well, I listened to him for years before, but I didn't realize you could go out and actually buy the things on the radio until I got my driver's license.
You look a lot older. It's funny. Man.
Yeah.
No, you're just a late
hopelessly.
bloomer.
A late bloomer.
But
That's a good
I
way to
found
put
some
it.
of the most intensely interested people were late bloomers. I mean, you say you heard records but didn't know you could actually purchase them.
Right, until I had a car, and could drive. And, hey, there's a record store. You can actually buy these things. Correct.
What about you?
This
Took
is
me a
it.
while to catch
That's your
on.
first?
Yeah,
Wow, it says Sid Griffin in the corner.
Yeah, it also has, I just was learning to
that's
spell
so
in the back, so we won't show the back. And one reason why this thing is so decrepit is this is the first rock and roll album I ever bought in my life, period. It's not Dad buying it for me or anyone, just I got it with my own money. I was raking leaves. And although I think it's a fine record, I think the Beach Boys made better records, but it means a great deal to me, and I'm so glad you asked that.
And of course, you were living on the West Coast at the time.
Yes. No, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, so I don't have a lot to do with the surf sound as a young man, as a little kid, certainly. But one of the reasons I came out here, this is pretty good. It's like being. One of the reasons I came out here is people like the Byrds and the Beach Boys were such a heavy influence on guys like me that were learning to play guitar. Because there was no way I was going to be Albert King, and there was no way I was going to be Magic Sam. But you have an outside chance at getting in a groove at McGuinn or Carl Wilson or whatever. So when we started pursuing music for a career, my band moved out here. And I got on the show.
Yeah, here you are.
And
What was the first record you
nowhere
bought?
to go but down from here.
Wow, first record in my life or in rock and roll?
Probably in rock and roll.
In rock and roll. I think I bought Over the Mountain.
Yeah? Johnny and
Might
Joe.
have bought that, yeah.
Well, that holds up real well. You listen to that thing still.
Yeah, I know.
It's so darn
Well, she had
It's very
something.
modern
Johnny had
first
something to
time.
do with the Janettes later too. So I
Johnny
go
and-
around
Johnny
the
and Joe?
roses. I think so. Yeah, and
Like-
that's a killer record.
Then I bought Be My Baby, which got worn out. You know? It's such an elusive kind of a sound. You listen once, and you hear something, and then you listen again and again. It's very elusive.
You've got all the Spector records.
Oh yeah.
Do you figure you've mastered how he got all his sounds?
I mastered the instrumentation of the sounds. You know what I
Right.
mean, like I could say, well, that's a bass, and I can identify a guitar there, and then I hear something in echo here. But to emulate Spector is to really get in the studio. You know what I mean? Because everybody was doing it, so why not?
I thought, from what I heard of the new record, that a lot of it sounds pretty Spector-ish in places. The production
tracks-
is very strong.
No, not really Spector. Not the album. Some of the arranging in the album had Spector kind of things, but most of it was my kind of thing. I don't choose to emulate anybody anymore. I did that. I figure I was a messenger in the '60s.
Right.
I had a message, and that was, well, let's see, why don't you play "Be My Baby" or "To Do Ron," and turn people on to something good like that, But
yeah, I understand Andy Paley, who I followed
yeah,
for a
you know
while.
about him?
Yeah, he did some neat records. He worked with you somewhat on this
he
record.
lived with Phil Spector for 6 months.
Did he really?
Yeah, Spector brought him into his fold, fed him, recorded him, everything, groomed him up, and then he kicked him out.
Nothing ever came out, right?
No, nothing came out.
Wow.
But I don't know. He's real with it,
Yeah,
he's kind of fast-witted and sort of.
Plays a lot of instruments.
Yeah.
and all
Andy,
that
we're
kind of-
talking about, or Phil?
Andy, yeah.
Oh, Phil's kind of fast-witted too, and plays.
He does
and
have a wit.
And Phil may kick you out.
I personally believe that Phil practices all his lines at home and then has people over. and then
rehearses or something.
Yeah, rehearses. But that's my opinion.
This may be true.
Well, you guys in the early days, I know you recorded some stuff. Ed Gold Star, didn't you? How much was Pet Sounds there?
We did a song there called "Why Do Fools Fall in Love." Have you ever heard that song?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
great
we
version.
did a version of that one, and we did "Be True to Your School" there.
Uh-huh.
And what else? That's it.
So you were in and out of there. So
Yeah.
how did you happen to go there for those? Because
It was just Mike said, "Hey, why don't we cut where Phil Spector cuts?" I said, "Hey, that's a good idea. We'll go copy a sound." So we got a couple of hit records.
Yeah, great.
But that's kind of, this is getting kind of one-dimensional, because I can almost hear the Spector bell buzzing. Because when new wave or punk bands happened, like the Ramones are a fine example, you guys were one of the few bands at that time people my age didn't sort of start to dislike as being dinosaurs or whatever. Like the Sheen is a punk rocker and Rockaway Beach and records like that are definitely Beach Boys, Jan and Dean, West Coast sound influenced with the guitar.
I mean, Ramones records?
Yeah, Ramones records, as opposed to, certainly the Ramones.
Well, the Ramones did "Do You Want to Dance"?
Yeah,
very much.
sure.
Who produced it?
Taken from your
And they did an
version.
album with Phil
I think they
Spector.
did that one.
So what I was saying is that whole West Coast thing, not Spector, but what the Beach Boys did as well with the more guitar-oriented music as opposed to the Spector ballady productions, was something you shouldn't sell too short, because it sold a lot of bands later on down the line on a sound and on a certain feel and a certain energy. So there's really more to this than the Phil influence. There's that other edge of the sword.
It's amazing the musicians I run into, or anybody runs into, are just so influenced by you. I think it was Robin Hitchcock's show recently. All his band are like fanatic Beach Boys fans. They have every record. They have strange tapes of things. We're crazy about the stuff.
Yeah, we made albums, but some of the albums we made were almost like unfinished albums. You know what I mean?
Well, you were making them so fast.
What
for a
period
while
of time
there.
are you referring to when you say that?
Carl and the Passion's So Tough.
Yeah.
It had an incomplete feeling about it.
Yeah.
some of the albums also had what I call scatter theory, where instead of Rubber Soul, which everything tended to follow a pattern. You know, simply you could predict almost the next cut on the album. That's how precise the album was in itself. But albums later on, like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, were a little more unpredictable, and you really wouldn't know what the hell it was going to knock on your ass next. You know.
Mm-hmm.
The impression, I mean, I get as one of your fans is that you as a band, and certainly you as a solo artist, have recorded on and on and on, whether or not there's a given release date coming up for a specific Beach Boys or Brian Wilson album, and that there's tapes after tapes after tapes somewhere that you or whoever selects for this next album. And is that true? Is that why maybe some of these albums don't quite go A to B to C to D as you'd want them to, because they're from different sessions, different eras?
Yeah, what we did with Good Vibrations was we started the track out at Gold Star.
Yeah.
Took the track over to Sunset Sound, then we went over to Western, then we went down to CBS for the vocal. Took four or five studios. So, like I said, there was no way of knowing how that record was going to turn out. You know what I mean? Because of the being in so many places. You know what I mean? It would be impossible to know. So, when we finally finished it, I said, you know, this has got to be a masterpiece, and it went to #1 in the whole bit. You know. Totally acclaimed piece of art. Called me a genius. I heard My Obsession by the Rolling Stones about a week before I cut that record, and I was, as a matter of fact, I was invited down to hear their dub downs. They were mixing down the records, and they gave me some marijuana. You know, got me all stoned. Then they laid the stuff on me, and I couldn't find the door. It wiped me out so much. I didn't know where the door was to get out of the studio. And I was like dangling there, kind of like, what is this? Wait a minute, play that again. No, we can't because it's playing now. Gee, you know, and it really was quite an event to be there. You know.
Oh yeah, that was a great
creative
album.
experience.
That was a great Stones album.
But then it is true that you more or less record and write as a process continually. I mean, it's not something you go to as a 9-to-5 job. You're in the studio frequently making tapes or doing this or doing that.
Yeah, it's an ongoing affair with me in the studio.
But is this new record pretty much all specifically designed for this record? I mean, it's not.
Well, none of it, or all of it, is a collaborative effort. You know, so it's not really I'm not the only person in there kicking ass and saying what to say or telling somebody I have this to say. The collaborators and myself all have something to say about rock and roll music, and that's why I say, you know, it's unpredictable. The collaborators I work with are very predictable. They'll call me on every specific day, and they'll unload their changes and their I don't know what the word is.
Observations.
Yeah, observations.
Yeah.
And I'll go in the studio, and it'll be me and him saying something. You know what I mean? He'll be an executive producer, and I'll be a producer. Let's say, and we'll work together. You know, very, very closely. And now it's turning into more a collaboration. Is not really what I used to. It wasn't my gig. I wasn't into collaboration, but the collaboration that we have going is so strong that I feel this new album ought to skyrocket to the sky. You know, it'll shoot to the sky in sales.
Well, one cut that's going to be noticed, I think, is Rio Grande.
Yeah.
I think that has knocked everybody out. That's
because it's like a movie soundtrack, if you know what I mean. Although there's no film, but you don't need one because you can follow from the music what's going on. Like they're crossing the river, it's going to rain, or you know, whatever. I mean, is that kind of the idea? That sort of cinematography in music?
Well,
that's certainly what I got from it. Too much rock criticism.
How much did you guys hear the new album?
Twice.
Once.
You've heard
for
it,
me,
but you have heard it.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
Phenomenal. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I think the production is staggering.
We
I
worked
think
hard, yeah.
The voices sound great. I mean, it's what everybody's been waiting for from you, I think.
Well said.
We're ready for, like I say, sales is sort of the sky. I mean, we're ready for anything. When they lay what numbers can come in on Billboard on me, I'm sure I'm going to faint because it's going to be pretty high, you know. And I've been black music is on the rise. I've been hearing on the radio. I hear everywhere I turn now. There's this new black theme kind of music happening. You know, with Michael Jackson, of course, really getting up there. You know what I mean? And he broke in real good this week with a new record. Go ahead.
So how do you explain your status now vis-a-vis the Beach Boys? You have a solo.
Yeah.
And you're going to still perform with them, or you know?
No, well, it's going to be a little of each. If I do something with them at the same time, I'll be doing a solo album, which will be excuse me, a solo tour.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So
Do you have
With a full
musicians
band?
in
Yeah.
mind
Okay.
for that?
Pardon me?
Do you have musicians in mind for the solo touring?
yeah, we've got several musicians in mind already.
That should be amazing.
It ought to go. It ought to go real good.
You know,
that-
Well, historically, we were talking about the fact that in '64, when the Beatles came, almost every American band every band, period, was wiped out, except you guys in the Four Seasons. You know, it just
Gene
seems-
Pitney and Roy
You
Orbison
mean
hung on.
eclipsed?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a better word. Not
Yeah,
wiped
I
out.
think so too. Yeah.
If
I'd
the
have to go
Beatles
with
wipe
that.
people out, then they miss their point. You know, I mean, but eclipsed is a better word. Just temporarily eclipsed is what happened.
It was a great thing how the Beach Boys just stayed.
The Beach Boys got bigger than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Was that some impetus
I Get
to keep
Around was
going there?
giant.
Yeah,
The
well,
Beatles
Mike
came,
and
I mean-
Mike and I went out to dinner about a week after I Want to Hold Your Hand hit big, and he is kind of scratching his head, thinking, you know, what the fuck is going on here? And I said, well, I don't think we should quit, you know. But it was discouraging. I think the way they hit, of course.
Yeah,
the
just so
Beatlemania
big,
was
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and we were thinking, we were Beach Boy mania, you know. We'd go to a show and the girls would scream at us, and we'd think, wait a minute, they're screaming for the Beatles through us, you know.
That's interesting. Yeah.
By the way, I want to get in 5 minutes. I want to get
Sure.
Dominic in that seat. Okay. But then again, you guys in turn went over and did quite a bit of an impact overseas too, right? I mean, when people were looking English, the people in Europe were saying, "Bring me the Beach Boys," weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, quite a bit.
Well, I know David and I were talking. There's a guy named John Porteous that named his record shops after the Pet Sounds album. He's got a series of them. They're Beach Boys appreciation societies throughout Europe, and even more to the point, a Pet Sounds or certainly a Sunflower, a Surf's Up, I think, in Britain and France and Europe, had a much greater appreciation and a wider market or touched more fans, however you want to word it, than they did here at that time. Because that's some of his, in my opinion, some of Brian's strongest music and some of the Beach Boys as a band's strongest music. Sunflower, Surf's Up, et al. But I think in Europe they might have had a greater impact than
Sunflower
they did
was
here.
a great album.
Sunflower was supposed to be what in Britain they said was Brian Wilson's Sgt. Pepper, which is, their bag. But it's so funny that it struck them so heavily, and here, I don't know, it wasn't quite the same thing at all. Same with Pet Sounds and Surf's Up.
What about the early Jan and Dean business where Barbara Ann and stuff like that, where people got mixed up on the records? Were you guys just hanging out so much that you'd be on their records and they'd be on yours, and you sorted out later for who the artists were?
Never Jan and Dean?
Yeah.
We were having a party, and Dean Torrance came by the studio. We were doing our party album, right? The Beach Boys party album. And he dropped by, and I don't know how this happened, but he wound up singing lead on Barbara Ann. I mean, it was just I guess that he was real charming, I guess, and charmed Mike Love into letting him do the high part. We were doing Barbara Ann, and I was doing it. And they mixed the record to Dean's voice, was louder than my voice, and so it went to #1. But I mean, it was really amazing how he just got in there like that.
Yeah.
Well, don't you play piano or sing on Surf City or one of their hits? Wasn't that right? Or am I-
You gave him Surf
I
City.
sang on
right?
Surf City in the background, and
New Girl in
and wrote it
School.
with Janet Dean, I think.
What was that one?
With Jan Berry.
New Girl in School.
Oh,
too, but-
yeah, that was New Girl in School. I'm trying to think. Did they record that?
Yeah.
Was it a single?
A Flip Side, I think.
Flip
Drag
Side, yeah.
City and New Girl in School, something like
Not
that.
sure.
but yeah. Yeah. It was,
Did Terry Melcher have anything to do with this new record? Because on the people probably couldn't read it. On the thing as it's held up on the back of the album cover, the mock-up or whatever it's called, there's no credits. It says produced by et cetera, because it's just an example of the artwork. So I was wondering, is it a Brian Wilson production, this new LP?
Mine?
Or Paley? Yeah, your LP.
It's a Brian Wilson production. Dr. Eugene E. Landy executive production.
Jeff Lynne's on it too.
Jeff
isn't he?
Lynne, yeah, Jeff and I.
Paley would be on it, I suppose.
yeah.
Andy Paley.
No. He produced with me Rio Grande, which is that suite
Yeah, right.
of songs, you know, those
Yeah.
an 8-minute suite.
The one I
kind
was
of thing.
talking about is
yeah,
the movie
he,
thing.
He worked with me on that. Yeah.
We got 3 minutes to go. I want to
Okay.
have my friend Dominic come in for a second. I don't have a mic for him, so I want him to just talk to me. And did you meet him before the show?
Yeah, I think
Do you
so.
want me to answer
Come on over here.
it?
Just have a seat next to me, and if you wanted to ask anything to Brian, because he's one of your biggest fans for sure.
And an expert, a true
Come on down,
expert.
come on
Okay.
down here. Yeah.
I'll take a knee.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We have a minute and 2 minutes.
a minute and 2 minutes.
Sure.
Okay. So you've got the new album coming out, right?
Yeah.
And you've got you've been the producer. Now you've got some cuts on there like "Meet Me in My Dreams Tonight."
Right.
I've heard these cuts more than Andy's a buddy of mine.
Oh,
Okay, so I mean you've got now when you have got 50 tracks or however many tracks you're recording with. Okay, and then in the old days you used to do 3 tracks, but you've got such a big wall of sound. How have you been able to climb that mountain?
well, what do you mean by mountain?
I mean, you've got so many more tracks to work with. In the old days, how'd you make the record with like 3 tracks? And you got such a big
are you
sound.
talking about like 48 tracks, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Where there's like a complete, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's all done one by one. You know what I mean? You know, it's not like, okay, guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, play.
Yeah,
It's
right.
done like, all right, I'll do a keyboard like this.
Like piecemeal.
Then let's do some bells here, you know, and everything is kind of selective or whatever. It's
Layered
like
and stuff.
Layered.
Yeah.
Yeah, you groom it slowly. You shape it slowly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy is an excellent musician, great musician,
Mhm.
and he did collaborate well with me on Rio Grande.
Mm-hmm.
But Andy Paley is definitely one of my favorite musicians, and but it wasn't like a mountain. More of a the way it was with him, and of course my collaborators, was almost a landslide of creativity. You know what I mean? And which is scary, but you know, to be there, you know. But at the same time, it's such a kick, you know.
Yeah.
That, you know, you don't worry about how scared you are because it's too much of a kick to continue on with this creative venture. You know.
Sure sounds like it. The record sure reflects that excitement.
So you have a different variety of tunes you're doing now. You've got like ballads, a Rio Grande, which is like a big suite.
Right.
Meet My Dreams Tonight would be like a 45 type of cut.
Right.
You know, like how do you enjoy these different styles you're doing? I mean, do you just go into one piece and then go into another piece, and when you finish with one mood, you go on to something else? I mean, how does it all
Well,
come together?
we piece them together. It depends on if the order of the songs is important too, because you know, you don't want to put like 3 ballads in a row and 1 rocker. You know, you want a rocker, ballad, medium rock, ballad, rock. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's how we do it. We figure out in advance what we're going to be doing when the order is in line. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Okay, well, thanks. We're done. And Dominic, thanks for coming by. But thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
It's been a very big pleasure and honor
Sure
to have you
has.
here.
Absolutely.
Fellas, I'll see you soon. Hope I see you soon too. So hope you're performing sometime soon. We can
Okay.
all get to see you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. This is the Large Poker Party. Saying good night. See y'all soon. Roll end credits, folks.
To watch.